Welcome to Eastside Groups Podcast, where each week Pastor Chad Mann and Emily Watson will chat about the need for discipleship, what it is, and how we as believers and as a church are working towards being disciples who make disciples. If you're new to our podcast, Eastside is a church who exists to transform Fort Smith and beyond. Our purpose here at Eastside is to gather, grow, and go. Learn more about us at myeastside.tv. Let's get started.
And we're back for episode 7 today.
7 episodes.
This is 7, right?
Man, it is.
Yeah, and you've been on the beach, right? You've been at the beach, had a great time.
3 days on the beach.
So fun.
It was a blast.
It's like you need a vacation from the vacation, right?
No.
You're good to go.
I'm good to go.
You're refreshed, renewed, and ready to jump back in.
I'm refreshed and rejuvenated. That is what I am.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk more about groups, going to talk more about discipleship groups, but we really wanted to focus in on kind of the trends of women's ministry and men's ministry in the past and where it's headed just basically globally, not just here at Eastside, but just in general. And so I'll start off by saying with women's ministry, when I was growing up, to me, women's ministry was the mother-daughter tea that we attended.
Yeah.
Women's ministry was the mother-daughter events or the big Christmas event that was put on for the community.
Mug and muffin.
Mug and muffins.
Mug and muffin, yeah. A mug of coffee or tea.
Oh, okay,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Mug and muffins, moms and muffins, whatever. So many great things. And these were great events that took a lot of time, effort, and resources to put on. And they were perfect for the season that they were that they were in. I mean, even Christmas events, we would see the community come, we would see people engage, and even the mom and daughter events, like we would see families engage in that. And those were great things in that time. And a lot of times women's ministry, I really think from, even the early 2000s, women's ministry was a group of women, or women's ministry was an actual event. It had to do with a lot of decoration, a lot of presentation, what sometimes I like to refer to as like the fluff of things.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about because you wanted it to be attractive and nice and appropriate. The church ladies would put on a women's ministry event.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be uncommon for women from other churches to attend it.
Yeah. And those are great things. And so even in the early 2000s, I want to say that's my guess, but that's when Lifeway came out with these awesome video Bible studies by, that was when Beth Moore's up and coming.
A lot of Beth Moore.
A lot of other authors were coming up after her, but mostly her movement, basically, where these video Bible studies with good, solid teaching were coming out. Women could get together in homes, in the church, watch great teaching, and have homework through the week, come back together for discussion. And it's a really great tool that we still use today, different tools from different authors, to learn and get into God's Word. And those are great things. And even as we still do those, I'm seeing where we're digging into the Word, but the accountability and the missional aspect are missing from those.
Right.
And even in the last 7 years since I've been involved in women's ministry, and I put that in quotes because women's ministry is women reaching women. It's not an event and it's not a Bible study group.
It's good.
But women's ministry is ministry to women reaching women. So it's like today, especially with this pandemic and as we move forward, what does women reaching women look like? And so I'm going to stop there with our women's ministry.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about those trends with men's ministry?
Right. And well, I would say it's very similar. If you asked 3 or 4 guys, hey, what is men's ministry? You could get 3 or 4 different answers. Or you might get 2 of them saying, well, it's our Wednesday night Bible study. And the other 2 would say, well, that's our quarterly men's pancake prayer breakfast, So we've put them into an event or a Bible study.
Yeah.
When I first came to Eastside, I sat down with a men's ministry leadership team, about 5 guys. And they were like, hey, what's your vision for men's ministry? And I said, well, first let me ask you, what is men's ministry at Eastside? And I got a few different answers. Well, we really put a lot into our Wednesday night men's gathering. And I said, oh, okay, what's that look like? Well, it's a Bible study. And we would really like a pastor to be there to teach. And, sometimes we have people come. But, we got a good core group of guys. Okay, sounds good. What else? I had another couple of guys, and their answer were, hey, we help out the deacons with as much as we can. We do a lot of things when it comes to moving. Like, we're the moving crew, or we're the fix your fence crew. Like, we do a lot of serving. That's what we do. That's our men's ministry at Eastside. So you had a lot of different ideas of what men's ministry was. And so my thing was, we need to define what it truly is. And it took a couple of years. I mean, it took 2 years really meeting with these guys, and some came on and some had rolled off of the leadership team. But we finally got to a point where, going alongside of how you just described women's ministry, women reaching women. So we would say men reaching men. We had come up with a vision, and I'll read it. It says, we want to see men lead in a disciple-making movement that takes place in our homes, our churches, and our community for the glory of Jesus Christ. Yeah. So that hasn't been displayed anywhere yet. That hasn't been in a brochure. That's something that our men's ministry leadership team, which is comprised of 7, this is what we're buying into right now. We're trying to get it into our mind and in our heart now as we begin to lead the rest of the men here at our church. And that is like, what is men's ministry? It's for men to lead in a disciple-making movement that's taking place in their homes, with their wives, with their kids, in their neighborhoods. It's taking place in their church, that men are reaching other men that are in the church, whether they're lost or they're believers that are in need of discipleship in their life, and being missional. Yeah.
And that's great, because that points directly to our vision and our mission here at Eastside, how we exist to transform Fort Smith and beyond. Right. And we do that through a disciple-making movement of men reaching men and women reaching women.
Right.
And so that leads us to talk about discipleship groups. Right. And I believe as we move forward in men's and women's ministries with men and women, that is what is right in front of us. That is our mandate there. And that's how we reach other men and women.
Right. That's not to say that we still don't have events, or that we don't have a pancake breakfast or mug and muffin or whatever. We still have those type of activities when we can, for the purpose of connection or inviting people into our circles, or as a bridge to maybe share the gospel with a man or with a woman. But in its essence, in its purest form, men's ministry and women's ministry is about making disciples of men and women. Yeah. And you're like, well, why is that? Well, it's just the mission of the church. So why you got to put that on the men's thing and the women's thing? That's just how it is. If we are all focused on making disciples, whether it's children, in kids ministry, why are the teachers there? They're there to come alongside the parents to teach biblical truths to the kid. But they're not in the home. Yeah. They're not providing the accountability through the week or the guidance through the week. Who's doing that? Moms and dads, which are men and women. Right. So when this begins to take place, that men and women in the church, moms and dads, or singles or married, whoever it is, when they begin to take ownership of their spiritual walk and they begin to experience the presence of Christ in their life on a daily basis, it will change households, it will change neighborhoods, it will change churches, and it will change the community. Kind of go back to what Jerry Wood had shared. Jerry was our first guest in our first episode here, and I remember him saying something to me as we started doing D group together last year. He said, what I've come to realize is we can't transform Fort Smith and beyond unless we're transformed first. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true. And how often can we sit through another Bible study or just sit through something and walk away from it and don't even remember what it was all about? Yeah. And like I was referring to the Bible studies that came out several years ago.
And a lot of the group studies. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. Because we were digging into God's Word, and that was great. That was a good thing. And you would have, on a Wednesday morning, like 50 to 60 women showing up on a Wednesday morning. And even as the years have gone by, those numbers have slowly decreased.
Right.
You know, and you have other things like Bible study fellowship or community Bible study, which are great because they're helping you get into the Word and building your knowledge of the Word. But you're seeing numbers slowly decrease, and it's like, well, we're so much busier.
Yeah.
Like, we are busy believers, so much busier
Right.
today than we were 10, 20 years ago. And so what is something that can help us to grow and understand the Word of God, understand the work of God and the wonder of God as busy believers? You know, we're busy with our families or with other relationships in our lives because we're meant to be in connection with each other.
Right,
We're supposed to be in a relationship with one another. We need people. Although some may say we don't.
Right.
We need to be together. And that's hard. Hard for men, right? So much harder than for women.
It is extremely hard for men in the church, or men in general, to have or to develop genuine, deep friendships where there's transparency, where there's trust.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, first off, as men, we're taught when we grow up to be a man is to be strong and stand up for yourself, and you know, so when we're weak or we feel fragile or hurt, it's almost like this sign of weakness, and we're not supposed to do that, you know. So what we do as men as we grow up is we kind of push things to under the rug, or we suppress something.
Yeah.
We don't get honest at times, and especially in our walk with the Lord. You know, it's a shame that, okay, I want to say it's a shame. It's just difficult. Sometimes if you and I were to walk through the halls of a church, I know it's different right now, but let's go back into churches meeting. We could walk through the hallways of churches, okay, and let's pretend you and I are invisible, okay, and we went through the halls, and we went into a men's classroom that was just for men, and we went into a women's classroom that was just for women. I'm willing to bet, okay, that the conversations going on in the women's classroom is different than the one in the men's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and we know that because it's men and women.
Yeah.
But when you're done with the Bible lesson or in the prayer time, you're going to notice a difference in there too. There's going to be more honesty, transparency, humility, and maybe even like a brokenness and a longing for God, I think, in the women's requests and in their sharing. And in the men's room, it's going to be, you know, we might lean on the Lord and ask Him to help with it, but it's going to be less specific. It won't be as transparent. It'll be short and brief in a lot of occasions. Okay, and so I think one of the greatest things that D groups, discipleship groups can offer is friendships. I mean, that's not the purpose of D groups, just to have some friends and make new friends. But true relationship begins to take place when people get centered on God's Word together and are praying for one another together. There's a bond that's going on there, and it's pretty awesome. And I was going to highlight something else. There's a book called The Masculine Mandate by Richard Phillips, and it's called The Masculine Mandate, God's Calling to Men. And it's a wonderful book. I've used it in the past as a book study with guys in small groups. And, you know, some of the chapters in here talk about the man in marriage, the man as shepherd, Lord, the man as a father. But there's an example in here of friendship between, you know, King David and Jonathan, who was King Saul's son. And, you know, probably the rightful heir to the throne is the son, but God had different plans. And Saul's jealousy and everything that's going on with him caused him to pursue David, to rid him, to destroy him. And so we have this awesome thing from 1 Samuel 23. It talked about Jonathan strengthened his hand in God, strengthened David's hand. Okay? As David's wondering about his life and woe is me and what's going on, why would this be happening to me? Jonathan shows up, pursues him, finds David to strengthen his hand in God.
Yeah.
What that means is he went there to spiritually encourage him. You know, David's in this place where fear or weakness or just, you know, here's a strong, this.
He was his champion.
Exactly.
He was for him.
Exactly.
And we need people like that.
Right.
We need people who are cheering us on and telling us we're doing a good job, and encourage us and praise us in the things that we're doing well, but also cheer us on and challenge us to pursue the Lord above all else.
Yeah. And I think that's what men need. Men need genuine, deep friendships, not just to talk about football and hunting or whatever. We should talk about those things. Those are good things to discuss, okay? But the Christian man needs more than just conversation about recreation and sports.
Right.
He needs gospel conversations in his life, and he needs meaningful ones. And that takes time, because men have to develop a trust and a transparency, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what discipleship groups can do for men and women in the church, is you're saying for the next 12 to 15 months, we're going to commit to meeting together weekly for the purpose of spiritual growth. We're going to be in the Word together. We're going to pray together, talk about God and who He is together. We're also going to get to know each other and what God is doing in each of our lives. And so what's that do? It forms a bond, a friendship, a spiritual bond, and a genuine friendship that I think would change any man, any woman. And the more we have involved in those kind of relationships, those kind of friendships in the church, the more people you have on mission for the gospel. Right. You think about that.
And that's an encouragement.
Yeah, when men are in love with the Lord, okay, and they're challenging each other to be champions of the gospel together, you know what? They're going to become passionate about the Great Commission. They're going to become passionate about winning their lost co-worker or relative or son or daughter to the Lord. So
yeah. And even though we have, like, when you talk about like authenticity, it makes me think, we're having to wear these literal, like, we're having to actually wear masks everywhere. And like when we are in genuine relationships, authentic relationships, intentional relationships, it's like these masks come off, and we're able to just be vulnerable, be open and transparent, and build that trust with one another. And so although I'm thankful so much for the women and the men who spearheaded and kind of were the front runners for men's ministry and women's ministry all throughout the years, putting together events and studies for people to come to and bring their lost friends and bring those who are in need of spiritual growth. Those are all great things. But it's so exciting to see where we are going and how we can reach more people, and how we can grow in the Lord and help lead our families and help lead those around us by being disciple makers in this disciple making movement that we're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
And I remember back, several months ago when you had mentioned we would transition from Wednesday night Bible studies to that being an open night for families to be in the home or for discipleship groups or D groups to meet. I just thought, oh gosh, what is this change going to be like? Because first of all, it's change, and there are women who, they look forward to that every Wednesday night. There's good things going on.
Right.
But I also so believe in where we're headed with D groups and discipleship groups that it all makes sense. And then this pandemic just kind of made it seem a little bit more natural with that transition. Yeah. But would you agree in saying like that is a good thing? Like that's where we need to go.
I really believe with all my heart that's the best direction to go. And it's not that Bible studies aren't good. It's not that I didn't enjoy any of the studies that I've been through here in the last few years at Eastside on Wednesday night. I was the guy picking them.
Yeah.
There was times where I was the guy who was doing the teaching. I love to teach.
Yes.
So by me saying, we're going to move away from this in order to put more emphasis and focus on D groups, I'm sacrificing a little bit. I'm sacrificing. I love to teach. I love to do these things. But I know that they're hearing a sermon on Sunday. Most people are also hearing another lesson from their Connect group or Sunday school for other churches. They're hearing two messages. They also may have another Bible study that they're part of outside of the Wednesday thing.
It's a lot.
It can be. So we would just want to, we're seeing a shift here. We're like, okay, Bible knowledge is great. It is good.
Yeah.
But if we just have Bible knowledge for information without transformation, we've missed it.
Yes.
So let's offer more avenues here to take what we're learning and what God is speaking to us through His Word and to put it into action. And we can do that through discipleship groups, relationships, to spur one another towards love and good works to, hey, brother, how's this? We heard this sermon, or hey, we're reading through this passage together this week. Ephesians 5. Man, that's a hard one, ain't it? When you think about that. Love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for. And how do you do that, brother?
Yeah.
How can we
help you? How can we
this,
hold you accountable? Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. And I know it's hard. Like, because, again, those Wednesday night Bible studies, they're not bad.
Yeah.
And you've got men and women that come to them faithfully. Yes. Okay. But we're just saying, hey, let's take a step back from that, because we already are having regular Bible intake. And let's start to put more of a focus on reaching out to men in our church who need discipling relationships, who need godly friendships.
Right.
Okay? For the purpose of accountability, encouragement, and missional living. Not in the Bible study where, well, this means we should be on mission. But in the D group, we're going, hey, who'd you share the gospel with this week?
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned your neighbor just moved in. You don't think they go to church, or you're wondering if did you share the gospel with them this week? Can I come over? You want me to invite them over? We'll have a cookout at my house for the purpose of building a relationship with them, so we can share the gospel. See, that's the kind of thing.
These are all great practical ways to be able to engage with others and reach men and women.
Right. And so if you don't have a Wednesday night, here's another night I have free. If we're not doing Wednesday night church activities, what am I going to do? We would say, hey, a couple of things you could do. Use that time to invite your lost neighbor over for dinner for the purpose of sharing life with them and hopefully sharing the gospel. Or maybe you haven't had time to be a part of a discipleship group because your schedule's been so packed.
Yeah.
Well, now Wednesday night might be that open window for you to do that, because you already had that time blocked out for church or spiritual activities.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're using that time, you've got kids in your home, maybe young ones. Maybe you're going to take that night and you're going to use that evening for a focused time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, of just spiritual conversation in the home with your children.
Yeah.
Praying together, reading the Bible together, maybe even singing.
I love that. That's great.
I think we've kept people so busy in the church, we choked the spiritual life out of them.
Yes, I would agree with you.
So, like we were talking earlier, it's almost like with this pandemic,
reset.
God has hit a reset button saying, okay, I'm about to give you more time.
That's good.
I'm about to free up your schedule. I'm about to give you more opportunity. I'm about to put you in a place where it's not just, I got this and I give this to the pastor. It's now, okay, I've got to start doing this myself. I've got to come alongside of my pastor in fulfilling the Great Commission and building the church.
Yeah, so. This is great. And if you are interested in learning more about discipleship groups, D groups, and we'd love to get you connected with more information. So let us know, Chad or Emily. You can email us, Chad at myeastside.tv or Emily at myeastside.tv, and we'd be happy to get you connected.
Exactly.
So it's been a good time. We've had a good time. Really good discussion.
Very good discussion.
And so hope everybody has a great week. Know that we are praying for you. We believe in you. We believe what you're doing and are excited to see how God continues to use us here at Eastside and in Fort Smith.
Great things are coming.
That's right. Make disciples.
Make disciples.
Thanks for tuning in to Eastside Group's podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share our podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you in the next one.